You thought you knew NBA history? But no, these are the stories the league quietly buried, the moments too strange to believe, but too real to ignore. Let's blow your mind. 1977 draft becomes Comedy Central. It was supposed to be a new era of talent. But the 1977 NBA draft became a straight-up circus. At pick 137, the New Orleans Jazz selected Lucius Allen. A decent player, except for one problem. Lucius had already been in the NBA for nearly a decade. He was retired. It's like drafting LeBron today and acting like you discovered something new. And it didn't stop there. The Knicks drafted a player named Larry Johnson, but not Larry Johnson. This one never made it past his college bench. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Hawks picked Terry Furlow, who was tragically already dead. He had passed away in a car crash just weeks earlier. The NBA didn't even notice. Turns out, the 1977 draft had gone completely off the rails. Teams were drafting names from outdated scouting sheets. Some were duplicating picks, and others were just taking wild swings. One front office exec later admitted, "We had no idea what was going on in the later rounds. It got so absurd that the NBA eventually reduced the draft to just 2 rounds. And looking back, that wasn't just a rule change. It was damage control. Because that draft wasn't just weird, it exposed how unprepared the league really was." Wilt Chamberlain's superhero track stats. Wilt Chamberlain was already one of the most dominant athletes in sports history. But what if I told you basketball wasn't even his best sport? Before he ever touched an NBA hardwood, Wilt was destroying track and field records at Kansas. He could run the 440-yard dash in 49 seconds. That's Olympic-level speed for a man who stood 7 feet 1 inch and weighed 275 pounds. He ran the 100-yard dash in 10.9 seconds. At that size, that's superhero territory. He high-jumped 6 feet, 6 inches, threw the shot put 56 feet, and triple-jumped over 50 feet. Wilt wasn't just a big man. He was a one-man decathlon. He once said, "People think I was just tall, but I could outrun guards, outjump centers, and outlast anyone." He wasn't wrong. There's a story of him chasing down an Olympic sprinter in a foot race and winning. Another of him blocking a shot so hard it broke the scoreboard glass. His body was built like a Marvel character, but his mind? Obsessed with domination. And the scary part? Wilt almost chose track and field over basketball. Imagine history without the 100-point game. No dominant Sixers run. No Wilt versus Russell rivalry. Just a 7-foot track monster rewriting Olympic history. The NBA didn't just get a player when Wilt joined. They got a once-in-human-history phenomenon. And yet somehow, we still underestimate how freakishly gifted this man really was. And we're just getting started. We've had imposters, stare-down ejections, and careers shorter than a TikTok. But the next story? They get darker, stranger, more unbelievable. Keep watching, because the weirdest stuff is still ahead. Barry Bremen's fake draft pick prank. In 1979, America tuned into the NBA draft expecting the usual. GMs fumbling picks, players in big suits, and maybe one dramatic trade. What they didn't expect was Barry Bremen. He wasn't a player. He wasn't on any team's radar. In fact, Barry was a salesman from Detroit. But on draft night, he strolled up to the podium dressed in a warm-up suit, claimed to be a prospect from Western University, and announced he had been drafted. Everyone believed it. TV cameras zoomed in. Commentators congratulated him. Security just let it happen. Why? Because no one expected someone to have the guts, or the absurdity, to fake their way into the NBA draft on national television. Barry later admitted, "I just wanted to see if I could pull it off." Turns out, this wasn't his first stunt. He had snuck into the MLB All-Star Game as a player, crashed the Super Bowl dressed as a ref, and even accepted an Emmy Award pretending to be someone else. They called him the Great Impostor. And this NBA prank? One of his greatest. The league was so embarrassed they never officially acknowledged it. But NBA historians kept receipts. It's a reminder that sometimes, the most unforgettable moments never even involve a real player. Because in 1979, one man trolled the entire league on live TV and got away with it. Michael Jordan's teammate got cut for being too good at trash talk. In the 1990s, the Chicago Bulls locker room was a battlefield, and LaBradford Smith was the poor soul who accidentally triggered Michael Jordan's wrath with a compliment. Here's how it went down. In March 1993, Smith had the game of his life against the Bulls, dropping 37 points on 15 of 20 shooting. After the game, Jordan claimed that Smith approached him and said, "Nice game, Mike." That one line, whether real or not, set off a chain reaction. Jordan stormed into the next day's rematch with a vendetta. In the first half alone, he dropped 36 points, essentially matching Smith's entire performance. By the end, the Wizards were crushed. Smith never recovered. But here's the twist. Years later, Jordan admitted, Smith never actually said that. It was a total lie, made up by MJ to fuel his inner demon. And it worked. Smith, a quiet, polite player who'd never trash-talked anyone in his career, suddenly found himself blackballed. Teams viewed him as arrogant, disrespectful, and possibly toxic for locker rooms. Within 2 years, he was out of the NBA. All because Jordan created a fake quote and used it to destroy a man's career. This wasn't just a story of dominance. It was a psychological mind game. Jordan didn't just beat his opponents, he rewrote their narratives. And in Smith's case, one imaginary sentence cost him everything. The next batch includes a story so weird it forced an actual rule change, and another where a mascot got banned from life. Stay locked in. The strangeness, it's only warming up. Rasheed Wallace once got a tech for just staring. You know you've made it as an NBA legend when your stare gets you ejected from a game. That's exactly what happened to Rasheed Wallace, the king of techs, back in 2000. The Portland Trail Blazers were playing the Lakers. Wallace, always emotional but composed that night, had one job: stay quiet. He did, not a word. But after a questionable call, he turned and just looked at referee Ron Garretson. That's it. No yelling, no cussing, just a stare. Technical foul. Wallace was stunned. The crowd was stunned. Even Garretson admitted post-game, "I felt the stare was aggressive and threatening." And with that, Rasheed Wallace became the first player in NBA history to be teed up for using only his eyes. This wasn't just funny. It was absurd. Wallace would go on to set the record for most technical fouls in a season with 41. The NBA had to implement a new rule. After 16 techs in a season, players would be suspended. That rule? Basically the Rasheed Wallace law. But no moment defines his legacy better than the silent tech. Imagine playing elite defense, saying nothing, then getting tossed for facial expression. That's not just weird. It's NBA referee paranoia at its finest. And Rasheed? He wore it like a badge of honor. Because sometimes, the stare says more than words ever could. A rookie's career ended after just 3 seconds on the court. You train your whole life for this moment. Draft night, the NBA dream. You finally get your number called. And then, boom, career over. Meet James Curry, a promising high school star, former McDonald's All-American, and a second-round pick in 2007. He had a game, no doubt. Scouts praised his shooting and handles. The Bulls saw potential. Fast forward to 2010. Curry finally suited up for an NBA game. Late in the fourth quarter, he was subbed in for the Clippers. He played exactly 3.9 seconds. That's it. No shot attempts, no fouls, no assists. Just in and out. He never played in another NBA game again. And that, officially, made him the shortest NBA career ever recorded. But what's worse? Curry's fall didn't come from injury. It came from a series of bad decisions. In college, he was arrested for drug possession. He bounced around the D-League in Europe but couldn't stay consistent. His talent was real, but his discipline wasn't. That 3-second debut became a symbol of unfulfilled promise. Fans started calling him the blink and you miss it rookie. Teams moved on. He later said, "I wanted to be great. I just didn't know how to stay focused." Curry's story isn't just weird, it's tragic. Because in a league built on second chances, he never got a real first one. From bizarre suspensions to wedding dress stunts and legal shoe battles, these stories prove the NBA is anything but normal. If you thought that was wild, wait till you see what's next. Hit subscribe, because we're diving deeper into the truly unbelievable. An NBA player literally forgot how to shoot. Imagine waking up one day and realizing you forgot how to do the one thing your entire career was built on. That's what happened to Markelle Fultz. Coming out of Washington, Fultz was the #1 pick in the 2017 NBA draft. Scouts called him unguardable. His jumper was smooth, his handles elite. The Sixers saw him as the final piece to the process. But then something broke. Just weeks into his rookie season, Fultz started shooting. Weirdly, his form collapsed. His free throws looked like glitchy 2K animations. Nobody could explain it. At first, the team called it a shoulder injury, but the diagnosis kept changing. Scapular imbalance, nerve damage, thoracic outlet syndrome. The media mocked him. Fans booed him. A #1 pick with a broken jump shot? Philly didn't have time for patience. He was even caught relearning how to shoot with both hands. Imagine that. The most basic muscle memory in basketball, gone. It wasn't until years later with the Orlando Magic that Fultz began to look like himself again. But the trauma, it never left. And the weirdest part? Doctors still debate what exactly happened. Was it physical? Mental? A mix of both? Fultz's case became the NBA's version of the yips, a psychological spiral with no clear cause. His story isn't just weird. It's haunting, because it proves that even the most gifted players can wake up one day and forget how to play. This NBA player's tattoos were so controversial, the league banned them. In 2001, Chris "Birdman" Anderson entered the NBA with colorful energy and chaotic flair. But by 2009, his image had fully evolved. His mohawk spiked sky-high, arms inked top to bottom. Yet it was one tattoo that sparked league-wide outrage. Right on his neck, Anderson got inked with the phrase, "Free Bird." To fans, it was harmless, a nod to his nickname. But to NBA execs, it was too close to promoting freedom from the league's drug policy. Why? Because Birdman had just returned from a 2-year suspension for violating the NBA's substance abuse program. And the "Free Bird" tattoo? Some believed it mocked the system that kicked him out. Reporters ran wild with theories. Was it a protest tattoo? Was he daring the NBA to punish him again? The league didn't fine him, but they quietly made it clear to players. Visible tattoos promoting anti-league messages wouldn't fly anymore. Soon after, several rookies were warned about controversial ink. One even had to cover up a gun tattoo during games. Birdman, meanwhile, leaned into the chaos. He became an icon of rebellion, part Dennis Rodman, part folk hero. His wild look and relentless energy made him a fan favorite, especially during the Heat's title runs. But few remember how his ink nearly forced the NBA to rewrite its image policies. Because in a league obsessed with brand control, one man's neck tattoo nearly set it on fire. The NBA player who disappeared during a game. It was a normal night in 2002. The Chicago Bulls were getting blown out, again. And Bison Dele, the team's enigmatic center, had had enough. Midway through the second half, during a timeout, Dele calmly stood up and walked out of the arena. No injury, no explanation, just vanished. He didn't go to the locker room. He didn't talk to teammates. He left the building entirely and never played in the NBA again. Seriously, that was his final moment in the league. But the weirdness didn't end there. Dele was already a mystery. He read philosophy books during practice, played the saxophone, and once turned down a $36 million contract just because he didn't feel like playing anymore. And then, things got darker. Years later, in 2002, Dele went missing. For real. He and his girlfriend disappeared while sailing near Tahiti. The only other person on board? His brother, Miles DeBoard. Authorities later believed that Dele was murdered at sea. DeBoard was arrested weeks later but overdosed before standing trial. The full truth? Still unknown. Bison Dele became one of the few NBA players to literally vanish, from the court and from the world. His story isn't just weird, it's chilling. It's not about missed potential. It's about a man who ghosted the NBA, and may have been ghosted from life itself. The NBA player who got banned for flipping off a mascot. In 2000, during a game between the Toronto Raptors and the Detroit Pistons, something bizarre happened that would go down as one of the strangest suspensions in NBA history. Jerome James, then a young and fiery center for the Raptors, was having a rough game, frustrations mounting with every missed rebound and foul call. But his breaking point came not from a referee or opponent, but from the Pistons' mascot Hooper. During a timeout, Hooper decided to mess with James, taunting him with playful gestures and antics in front of the crowd. Instead of brushing it off, Jerome flipped him off, loud and clear. The arena erupted. The referees saw the gesture, and the league wasn't having it. James was slapped with a one-game suspension for unsportsmanlike conduct. The catch? It was the first NBA suspension issued for a gesture aimed at a mascot. The moment sparked huge media buzz. Fans debated, should mascots be off-limits? Was James justified in his reaction? Hooper became an instant legend, proving that mascots aren't just comic relief. They can be provocateurs. Jerome James never quite shook the incident, and it followed him through his career. The league later tightened rules on player conduct toward mascots and sideline personnel, making sure this weird incident wouldn't happen again. This story isn't just odd. It's a reminder that in the NBA, even the mascots can become players' worst enemies. These are just a handful of the weird, wild stories buried in NBA history. If your mind's blown so far, hit that subscribe and ring the bell. We're about to drop even crazier stories ahead. When Dennis Rodman wore 4 wedding dresses in one night, Dennis Rodman's life was always a circus of spectacle, but in 1996, he pushed boundaries like never before. On one wild night in Manhattan, Rodman didn't just wear one wedding dress. He rocked 4 different gowns all in one evening. The occasion? A book launch party for his autobiography, Bad as I Want to Be. But of course, Rodman made it about himself. Arriving in a horse-drawn carriage, he shocked the world by announcing he was marrying himself. A bold, bizarre, and unforgettable stunt that blurred lines between performance art and personal expression. Rodman's message was clear. He was rejecting norms about masculinity, identity, and how athletes should behave. The dresses were flamboyant, glittering, and unapologetically feminine, challenging NBA stereotypes on the biggest stage. The media exploded. Headlines screamed. The public was split between outrage, admiration, and disbelief. Yet, behind the spectacle was a deeper truth. Rodman was embracing every facet of his personality, no matter how weird or uncomfortable it made others. That night wasn't just a promo. It was a cultural moment. Nearly 30 years later, Rodman's wedding dress stunt remains a defining image of his career and a reminder that sometimes, being bad as you want to be means rewriting the rules of what an NBA star can be. A player sued the NBA for being forced to wear the wrong shoe. In 2003, Kenyon Martin found himself in the middle of an NBA legal nightmare over a pair of shoes. Martin, a fierce competitor known for his explosive dunks and aggressive defense, had a shoe deal with Nike. But during a playoff game, he was ordered by the league to switch to a different shoe brand for safety reasons, without consulting him. The issue? The new shoes gave him blisters and affected his performance. He argued the forced change contributed to an ankle injury. Frustrated, Martin took it a step further and filed a lawsuit against the NBA, claiming the league violated his rights as a player and contract holder. The case shone a harsh spotlight on the NBA's strict equipment policies and the power it held over players' personal deals. The lawsuit eventually settled out of court, but it forced the league to rethink how it managed player equipment, balancing safety and personal sponsorships. Martin's story became a landmark case in sports law, highlighting how even small details like shoes can spiral into massive controversies. It's a weird reminder that in the NBA, control isn't just about plays and players. It extends down to what's on their feet. The NBA player who played without kneecaps. Imagine stepping on an NBA court with no ACLs in either knee. Not a tear, but completely gone. That was Danny Blair's reality. Blair tore both ACLs back in high school, but the surgeries didn't hold. His ligaments dissolved over time, leaving him without the crucial knee stabilizers that almost every athlete depends on. But Blair? He was a coper, a rare type of athlete whose muscles and joint awareness make up for missing ligaments. He played over 400 NBA games, mostly with the Spurs, making the all-rookie second team and earning serious playoff minutes. Doctors warned teams about the long-term damage Blair was causing to his knees. Early arthritis was inevitable. Yet Blair's grit and strength pushed him through, rebounding against opponents with healthy knees. His story isn't just about pain tolerance. It's about the human body adapting in ways no one thought possible. A walking medical mystery, Blair rewrote what durability means in pro sports. the only woman ever drafted by the NBA. In the deep 7th round of the 1977 NBA draft, the New Orleans Jazz stunned everyone by selecting Lusia Harris, a 6 feet 3 inches center and a basketball legend. This wasn't a joke pick. Harris was a pioneer, having led Delta State to 3 consecutive national championships with a 109-6 record. She was a 3-time Kodak All-American and won the 1977 Broderick Award. On the international stage, she won gold at the 1975 Pan American Games and scored the very first points in Olympic women's basketball history at the 1976 Montreal Games. She was the first black woman inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame in 1992 and later honored by the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. Though she never attended NBA training camp, pregnancy and self-doubt held her back. Her draft selection remains a historic milestone. Her legacy inspired generations and forced the basketball world to rethink gender barriers. The NBA trade that fell apart. Because of a name mix-up, December 2018 brought one of the most confusing trades in NBA history. The Suns, Wizards, and Grizzlies cooked up a 3-team deal. The Wizards wanted Trevor Ariza. The Suns expected to get Dillon Brooks, a promising young player. Memphis was offloading Marshawn Brooks, a veteran. But here's the kicker. Nobody clarified which Brooks was actually going to the Suns. Memphis thought they were sending Marshawn. Suns thought they were getting Dillon. When both players found out they were traded, confusion exploded. Within minutes, the deal collapsed like a house of cards. The Suns and Wizards completed a separate deal, excluding Memphis. It's rare that a pro sports transaction falls apart over a name mix-up, but this one did. The Brooks debacle remains an NBA legend for its sheer chaos and poor communication. Fred Roberts was traded for 2 preseason games. In 1986, Fred Roberts was involved in one of the NBA's strangest trades ever. He was traded for 2 preseason games. Utah Jazz had Roberts under contract but didn't want to keep him long-term. Boston Celtics wanted him but had no second-round draft picks to offer in return. So, what did they do? They negotiated a deal that included a 3rd-round pick and 2 preseason games in Boston. Those games were like valuable assets, ticket sales, media buzz, and a chance for Utah fans to see the Celtics live. That 3rd-round pick? It turned into Billy Donovan, who later became a successful NBA coach. This trade wasn't about players or money. It was about creativity and value beyond the court. It shows that sometimes NBA front offices treat their assets like poker chips, and live games can be bargaining chips. Utah got spotlight and revenue, Boston got their guy, and Roberts got a new jersey. It's one of the few times the NBA has treated preseason games like currency. Dennis Rodman marries himself. Dennis Rodman's life was already wild, but in 1996, he took it to another level. At a Manhattan Barnes & Noble, Rodman showed up in a wedding dress, arriving by horse-drawn carriage. He announced he was marrying himself. This wasn't a joke or promo stunt. It was Rodman embracing his full identity, flouting conventions of masculinity and sports culture. He wore 4 different gowns that night, turning his book launch into a bold statement on self-love and radical authenticity. Rodman challenged NBA stereotypes by mixing femininity, eccentricity, and fearless self-expression. The stunt made headlines, sparked cultural conversations, and remains a defining moment of his career. More than just a media spectacle, it was a powerful declaration that being bad as you want to be means owning every part of yourself. Colin Sexton's 3-on-5 college basketball clinic. In a wild 2017 NCAA game, Alabama found itself with only 3 players on the court against 5 from Minnesota. Injuries and fouls had decimated the squad, leaving Colin Sexton, Galen Smith, and Riley Norris to hold the fort. Down by 15 points late in the game, Sexton took over like a man possessed. He scored 40 points, hitting clutch free throws and key baskets. The team clawed back to within 3 points, almost pulling off a stunning upset. Minnesota's coach and fans were baffled, witnessing a near miracle. ESPN called it one of the most bizarre basketball performances ever. Though Alabama eventually lost 89-84, Sexton's solo dominance showed unbelievable heart and skill. It was a statement. Sometimes one player can almost rewrite the rules. Royce White's fear of flying. Imagine being an NBA rookie with serious talent but terrified of something most players never think twice about. Flying. That was Royce White. drafted 16th overall by the Rockets in 2012, but battling severe aviophobia, fear of flying. White's anxiety wasn't a secret. It was well documented during pre-draft evaluations. He requested to travel by bus for some road games, hoping to avoid flights. Houston initially agreed, but soon got frustrated when White missed training camp and skipped flights. The NBA schedule is brutal, bouncing through time zones, constant travel. Teams can't just rearrange logistics for one player. White's struggle sparked legal debates about mental health accommodations under the ADA. Ultimately, the Rockets suspended him, and White spent time in the D-League before moving overseas. Though his NBA career was short, White became a landmark figure for mental health awareness in sports, forcing the league and fans to reconsider how neurodivergence is handled. D'Angelo Russell secretly records. Nick Young. In December 2015, rookie D'Angelo Russell did something no teammate ever should. He secretly recorded a private conversation with teammate Nick Young. On the tape, Young casually talked about cheating on his fiancée Iggy Azalea. The video leaked months later, sending shockwaves through the Lakers' locker room. Russell instantly went from teammate to pariah. Players avoided him, eating alone and shutting him out. No suspensions followed, but trust was shattered. Russell apologized publicly, but the damage was done. Lakers star Kobe Bryant's final season spiraled amid the drama, culminating in a 48-point loss to Utah shortly after. In 2017, Russell was traded away. Magic Johnson later said the tape destroyed the team's chemistry. This episode remains one of the most bizarre, damaging locker room controversies in recent NBA history. Gary Payton's pre-game jacuzzi McDonald's ritual. Gary Payton, one of the NBA's nastiest defenders, had a pre-game ritual that sounded more like a comfort food commercial than pro-athlete prep. Before every home game, Payton would soak in a jacuzzi while eating a full McDonald's meal. Big Mac, fries, 6 nuggets, the works. This odd combo wasn't a joke. It was his psychological and physical warm-up. The hot water loosened his muscles while the food mentally locked him in. While fries probably went cold, the ritual worked wonders. Payton played 1,335 NBA games, missing only 25 over 17 seasons, and averaged 35-plus minutes a night. He backed up the ritual with intense defense and trash talk that terrorized opponents. In an era of protein shakes and meditation, Payton's ritual stood out, proof that sometimes the weirdest routines lead to the greatest consistency.
From mind-bending trades to personal battles, these NBA stories are proof the game is never just about basketball. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the weirdest, wildest NBA moments, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. More insane stories and unheard NBA tales are coming soon. Drop a comment. Which story shocked you the most? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.